I watched my daughter through the diner window, her order pad tucked into her apron, moving between tables with the kind of ease that only comes from doing something 1,000 times. 22 years old, second year of her nursing program at Dalhousie, and she still picked up every shift she could at this place on Barrington Street. The Halifax wind was cutting that November afternoon, the kind that finds the gap between your collar and your scarf no matter what you do. I stood there longer than I needed to. Pride does that to you sometimes, makes you stop. Her name was Ivy. My daughter, my whole world since her mother, Carol, left when Ivy was 6. 16 years of the two of us figuring it out together in our row house in the North End. I drove a transit bus for Halifax Transit. Good union job, steady hours, benefits. Enough to keep the heat on and the fridge full. But Ivy never wanted me to carry her. She wanted to carry herself. My phone buzzed. My younger brother's name lit up the screen. Hey, you coming Saturday? Ivy and I will be there. What time does Renata want us? A pause. Just long enough. About that. Renata was thinking maybe this year it's more of an adult dinner. You know, with her parents flying in from Vancouver and the Whitfields from next door. I stopped walking. Evie's 22. I know. It's just, the Whitfields have this thing about, working people. Roger made some comment last year about the waitress at the restaurant, and Renata doesn't want anything to set him off. He's a potential client. She's a nursing student. She waits tables to pay for her own textbooks, Mike. My brother's voice dropped to that tone he used when he wanted to smooth something over without actually fixing it. It's just one dinner. Renata's worked really hard on this. We'll be there Saturday, I said and hung up. I didn't tell Ivy that night. She'd come home after a double shift, made herself a grilled cheese, and sat at the kitchen table going through her pharmacology notes with a highlighter. Her uniform still had a coffee stain on the sleeve. She'd circled 3 questions she wanted to ask her professor. Uncle Patrick's place Saturday, she said without looking up. Should I bring something? Don't worry about it. I was thinking that shortbread, the kind Gran used to make. Renata always says she loves it. I looked at my daughter. She had her grandmother's cheekbones and her mother's stubbornness and her own particular kindness that neither of them had given her. She'd built that herself. Yeah, I said. The shortbread sounds good. Saturday, we drove out to Bedford. Patrick and Renata had bought their house 3 years ago, one of those new builds backing onto the lake with the tall windows and the heated driveway. Patrick had done well for himself in commercial real estate. I was proud of him for that. I was. It's just that Renata had a way of reminding everyone within range that his success had been made possible by her connections, her father's contacts, her family's name. She said it with a smile, always. That was the thing about Renata. We arrived at 5:15. Dinner was at 6. I'd timed it that way on purpose, wanted to be early enough to help, to show we weren't just showing up and expecting to be served. The street was lined with cars. A black Audi, a silver Range Rover, a Lexus SUV with a BC plate, Renata's parents. I pulled my 12-year-old Civic into the only open spot. We're early, Ivy said, pulling the shortbread tin out of the back seat. She'd wrapped it in brown craft paper and tied a piece of twine around it. She'd done it herself on the kitchen table last night, cutting the twine with scissors and frowning at the bow until it looked right. We can help with setup. Renata opened the door before we knocked. She was in a wine-colored dress I'd never seen before, hair done, wearing the pearl earrings her mother had given her. Her smile landed on me first, then shifted to Ivy, and in that shift, half a second, something changed. Not the smile itself, the warmth behind it. Early, not welcoming, noting. We thought we could give you a hand, I said. Everything's done. Her eyes moved over Ivy's outfit. Dark jeans, a cream blouse, the good one she kept for occasions. Ivy had borrowed my iron that morning. Patrick's in the kitchen with his father-in-law. Go ahead. Ivy, the thing is, the Whitfields are very particular. Roger's wife has allergies, and they mentioned something about scents from food service environments being a trigger. Ivy went very still. I showered, she said. Her voice was level. I haven't worked since yesterday morning. Of course. Renata's tone was velvet over gravel. But these things linger. It gets into the fabric. I'm not trying to be unkind. I just can't have Judith going into anaphylaxis in my dining room. There's a perfectly good sunroom off the back. It's heated. You can sit in there until after the appetizers, and then once everyone's settled, I'm sure it'll be fine. Ivy looked at me, and God help me, I hesitated. I thought of my brother. I thought of how long it had been since things between us had been easy, since Carol left and I became the one with the complicated life, the inconvenient child, the bus driver brother who couldn't quite fit into the life Patrick had built. I thought of how much I did not want to blow this up over a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over in 20 minutes. Evie, Renata said gently, pointing toward the back of the house. It's okay, Dad. Ivy's voice was quiet, too quiet. The voice she used when she was trying not to cry. I'll wait. She walked past Renata and I watched her go and I went inside. I have never forgiven myself for that. Patrick was in the kitchen with Renata's father, a broad man named Douglas with the handshake of someone who had spent a lifetime proving himself. He poured me a scotch without asking, which told me everything I needed to know about him. The kind of man who assumed you'd want what he was having. Patrick tells me you drive the buses, he said. 14 years. Good, steady work. The way he said it, like steadiness was the consolation prize. I looked at my brother. Patrick met my eyes and then looked away. He handed me the glass. Renata sent Ivy to the sunroom, I said. Just until the Whitfields settle in. Roger's wife, as she showered, she changed. She's been off since yesterday. I know. Renata just. He lowered his voice. The Whitfields are worth a lot to us right now, Mike. The commission on what Roger's looking at would carry us for 2 years. I need this dinner to go well. She's your niece. I know she is. Then act like it. Patrick's jaw tightened. He looked into his glass. Said nothing. I should have walked straight to the sunroom. I should have taken Ivy's hand and our shortbread tin and left. But I stayed because I am a man who spent too many years believing that patience was the same thing as wisdom. They are not the same thing. I found her 40 minutes later. The sunroom was all glass and wicker, looking out over the frozen lake. Renata had set out a glass of water and a folded napkin on the wicker table, which was the worst part of it, the performance of courtesy. Ivy was sitting with her back straight, hands in her lap, watching the ice on the lake. The shortbread tin was still under her arm. She hadn't put it down. She heard me come in and turned, didn't say anything. Tell me, I said. It's fine, Ivy. She looked back at the lake. Renata's daughter stopped by about 10 minutes ago, Bryce. She's 14. Ivy's voice was careful, measured, the way she talked when she was editing herself in real time. She looked at me and said, "Are you the caterer?" When I said no, I'm her cousin, she said, "Oh, Dad said you work at a diner." Like that explained everything. My hands went flat on my thighs. I told her I'm in my 2nd year of nursing. She said her friend's mom is a nurse and they drive a Corolla. 4 words. They drive a Corolla. Said by a 14-year-old who had learned it from somewhere. How long? How long what? How long has Renata been like this with you? Ivy was quiet for a long time. Outside, the lake ice was dull and gray in the November light. Since I was about 14, she said finally. The first Christmas she and Uncle Patrick were together, she gave Bryce this cashmere sweater, the really beautiful one, periwinkle. She knew it was Bryce's favorite color. And she gave me a drugstore gift set, the kind they have by the checkout, bath salts and a little loofah. I still had the receipt stuck to the bottom, $4.49. I sat down across from her. Last Thanksgiving, she continued, and her voice was steady now in the way a person's voice gets steady when they have rehearsed something 1,000 times without meaning to. She seated me next to the kitchen because, and I'm quoting, "You'll be more comfortable closer to the coffee." Like she was doing me a favor. Why didn't you tell me? She turned to look at me then, and in her face I saw something I recognized because I had felt it myself every time I tried to protect her from something I couldn't actually stop. "Because Uncle Patrick is your only brother," she said, "and you've already lost enough people." I pulled her into a hug. She was taller than me by almost 2 inches now, had been since she was 17. She let me hold on. "You are going to be an extraordinary nurse," I said, "because you have figured out how to sit in a cold room by yourself for 40 minutes and still walk back into that house with your chin up. That is harder than anything Renata will ever have to do. Dad, finish your water. We're going inside. Please don't. We're going inside." She wiped her face once, quickly, with the back of her wrist, squared her shoulders, picked up the shortbread. The dining room had 14 people in it by the time we came back through. Long table set with the good dishes, candles, a centerpiece of white pine and berries. Patrick and Renata at the heads, Renata's parents beside them, the Whitfields to the right. Roger with his broad, pleased face, and his wife Judith, who wore a medical alert bracelet and looked like she'd never had an allergic reaction in her life, and then a scatter of friends and colleagues I didn't know. Everyone looked up when we walked in. I watched them look at Ivy, watched the small, fast assessments, the jeans, the blouse she'd ironed herself, the fact that she worked at a diner on Barrington Street. Renata appeared at my shoulder. "There are seats at the far end," she said quietly, steering us toward the corner of the table closest to the kitchen, where the servers from the catering company kept pushing through the swinging door. I picked up our place cards, moved us 4 seats toward the middle. "Those are reserved," Renata said. "For who? Roger's associate is arriving late, then he can have the end seats." I set our cards down. "Roger's associate will survive." Her face did not change. That was the remarkable thing about Renata. The face never changed. The soup course started, then the salad. The table conversation sorted itself into the shape all dinner parties take. Money, property, the right schools, the best ski hills. Whether the new development going up on the Bedford waterfront would hurt or help property values. I listened, nodded when nodded at, refilled my own water. I kept watching She was eating, making small conversation with the woman to her left who turned out to be a retired teacher from Dartmouth and who, bless her, asked Ivy about nursing school and listened to the answer. Ivy was fine. Ivy was always fine in public. She had learned, over years I hadn't fully understood, to take up exactly as much space as she was given. Roger's wife Judith had spent most of the dinner talking across the table to Renata about a spa in Lunenburg they both liked. She seemed to have no particular allergies that I could detect. The main course came out, rack of lamb. It was very good. I ate it slowly. Then Bryce, Patrick, and Renata's daughter, who had been seated in the middle of the table with her phone partially hidden under her napkin, said something to the girl beside her and then looked over at Ivy and laughed. Just a laugh. The kind teenagers deploy as a weapon because they've learned it doesn't leave marks. The girl beside Bryce looked at Ivy, and then back at Bryce, and then whispered something. Ivy put her fork down. She picked it back up, took a small, careful breath, and something in me went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that precedes patience. The other kind. I set my own fork down. I pushed back my chair. The sound of it on the hardwood was not loud, but the table heard it. Conversations paused the way they do when the air changes. I want to say something, I said. Renata turned toward me. Patrick's face went pale. Roger. I looked at the man across the table. I understand you're considering a property investment. Something significant, Patrick tells me. Congratulations on being in that position. Roger nodded, pleasantly confused. My daughter is in her second year of nursing at Dalhousie. She works 20 hours a week at a diner to pay her own tuition and her own rent. She has a 3.8 average. She was accepted into the clinical placement she applied for on her first try, which her program director told her only happens for about 1 in 10 students. I paused. She baked shortbread this morning to bring to this dinner because she wanted to do something kind for the people who invited her. It's sitting in a tin on the counter in the kitchen. The table was very quiet. She has spent the evening in this house being told, in one way or another, that she doesn't belong at this table. She was asked to wait in the sunroom because of her job. She was sat next to the kitchen door. She was laughed at by a 14-year-old who has been taught that a Corolla is something to be ashamed of. I looked at Renata. My daughter will spend her career keeping people alive. She will work nights and weekends and holidays. She will hold the hands of strangers in the worst moments of their lives, and she will do it with more grace than anyone at this table has shown her tonight. Roger's wife Judith had gone very still. Roger was looking at his plate. Patrick said quietly, "Mike, you have a choice," I said to my brother. "The way you say something when you know you're only going to say it once. Right now, you can say something, or you can stay quiet." He looked at Renata. He looked at her father. He looked at the table. He stayed quiet. I had known, I think, that he would. That didn't make it easier. "We're going to go," I said to Ivy. She was already standing. We walked to the kitchen first. Ivy picked up the shortbread tin. She stood at the counter for a moment, then set it back down and opened the lid. She took 2 pieces for herself, wrapped them in a paper towel. "Leave the rest," I said. She gave me a look. "Leave the rest." She closed the tin. We walked out the front door. In the car, she unwrapped one of the shortbreads and ate it, passed me the other one without saying anything. We drove back to Halifax on Highway 102 with the radio off and the shortbread dissolving on my tongue and the city lights coming up out of the dark ahead of us. At home, we ordered Lebanese from the place on Gottingen that stayed open late. We watched 2 episodes of whatever she had queued up, some British baking competition, and she fell asleep on the couch around 11 with her pharmacology notes open on her chest. Patrick didn't call that night. He didn't call the next day either, or the day after that. A week later, I got a text, not a call, a text, that said Renata felt I had embarrassed her in front of important clients and that an apology would go a long way toward repairing things. I responded that if he wanted to talk, I was available by phone any evening after 6. He didn't call. 2 weeks after that, I got a letter from a lawyer in Dartmouth. It was professional and precise. It said that Renata was seeking compensation for emotional distress caused by my outburst at a private dinner, and it named a figure that I won't dignify by writing down. I took the letter to a friend of mine, Sylvie, who had done family law for 20 years and owed me a favor from when I'd helped her move her mother to a care facility on the Dartmouth side 3 years ago. She read the letter. She put it down. She poured herself a coffee. "Do you have documentation?" she said. "Of what?" "Anything. Texts, emails, anything about how the daughter was treated at family events." I thought about Ivy. About 8 years of Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthday dinners. About a $4.49 bath set with the receipt still attached. "I can get documentation," I said. "Then respond with a counter notice. You decline to apologize. You reserve the right to file for emotional distress, and you mention the documentation. Will it go anywhere?" Sylvie picked up her coffee. "No, it didn't go anywhere. But Patrick and I didn't speak for the better part of 5 months. I drove my route. Ivy finished her semester. She got her clinical placement at the QEII on the orthopedics floor and came home the first night absolutely exhausted and absolutely lit up, like a lamp that had finally been plugged in. A patient asked if I was her nurse and I said yes, and she said, "Good, I feel better already," Ivy told me. She was eating cereal at the kitchen table, still in her scrubs. I cried in the staff bathroom for about 45 seconds. Then I went back. "Your grandmother used to say that the job chooses you before you choose it." "I know, Dad. You've told me 4 times, only 4? She threw a dish towel at me. In late March, my brother showed up at the house on a Saturday morning. I was under the Civic with a flashlight when I heard his car pull up. I didn't come out from under the car. "You always did do your own oil changes," Patrick said. "It's not that complicated." He stood there. I could see his shoes. Good leather, buffed. He'd always taken care of his things. "Renata and I are separating," he said. I set the flashlight down on the concrete. "Her father's firm is pulling their business from our partnership. There were some irregularities in 2 of the deals, things that came up in audit, and he's cutting losses. I don't know if the business survives." He stopped. I found out she'd been directing referrals to another agent, someone she grew up with. I'd been sourcing clients for 3 years that she was splitting with him. I didn't know. I came out from under the car, wiped my hands on a rag, looked at my brother. He looked older. Not dramatically, just around the eyes and the set of his shoulders. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. I earned it. Not what she did. I didn't earn that. But I earned the rest. What I let happen to Ivy, what I let happen to you." He put his hands in his coat pockets. I told myself keeping the peace was the same thing as keeping the family together. But I was just scared of her. Scared of losing the house and the clients and the whole shape of the life we'd built. And all I actually lost was my brother. I let that sit for a moment. "Evie's the one you need to talk to," I said. "Not me. Is she home?" "She's at the hospital. She's done at 4. He nodded. "Can I come back at 4:30? You can try. She might tell you to leave. She'd be right to." But Ivy didn't tell him to leave. She made him tea in our kitchen, the good kind, the loose leaf her friend had brought back from a trip to Prince Edward Island, and she sat across the table from him, and she listened to what he had to say. Patrick said he was sorry. He said it plainly, without conditions or explanations. He said he had made her feel unwelcome in his home, and he had let his wife demean her, and he had prioritized the wrong things. Ivy held her mug in both hands and looked at the table for a while. "You can't fix it," she said finally. "The dinners, the sunroom," Price laughing at me. "You can't go back and fix those, I know. So what are you asking for?" Patrick was quiet. "I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that I know, and that I'm sorry." Ivy looked at him for a long time. The kind of look that is actually an assessment. She'd gotten better at those since she started clinical. Reading a person's face for what it's actually telling you. "Okay," she said. "I hear you." She paused. "Bryce is 14. She learned it from somewhere. She did. She's going to need someone to undo that. I know. I'm working on it." He wrapped his hands around the mug she'd given him. "I'm going to be with her on my own starting in May. New place downtown. I want to do it right." Ivy nodded slowly. "Then show up," she said. "That's all. Just keep showing up." Spring came. Patrick sold his share in the partnership at a loss and took a position with a smaller firm in Dartmouth. He moved into a 2-bedroom on Roby Street. He started coming to Sunday dinners. Just dinner, nothing formal, whatever I'd put on. He and Ivy didn't have the relationship they might have had if things had been different. But they were building something. You could see it in the way they talked about small things. Hockey scores, the annoying road work on Bayers Road. Whether the leftover soup was better than the first bowl. One Sunday in June he stayed after dinner to help me with the back fence, which had been leaning since February. We worked in the evening light, him holding the post while I tamped the gravel, neither of us talking much. Ivy sat on the back step with her pharmacology flashcards, quizzing herself. A robin had built a nest in the neighbor's apple tree and was making a racket about it. "She's going to be remarkable," Patrick said. "She already is." He handed me another post cap. "How did you raise someone like that on your own?" I thought about it. About 16 years of school lunches and shift trades and reading her to sleep and watching her grow into herself in ways that had nothing to do with me. "I didn't raise her to be anything," I said. "I just tried not to get in her way." He laughed. Actually laughed. The way he used to when we were kids, and something struck him as true. Ivy looked up from her flashcards. "Are you two done being profound? Because I need someone to quiz me on antihypertensives and Dad keeps guessing randomly." "So I'm supporting the learning process," I said. "You guessed that blue one twice." Patrick held out his hand for the cards. "Quiz me. I have genuinely no idea what any of these are, so your confidence will be justified." She handed them over. He sat down on the step beside her. Started reading out the drug names in a pronunciation so catastrophically wrong that she couldn't get through an answer without laughing. I went back to the fence post, tamped the gravel, checked the level. Started on the next one. Above the neighbor's yard, the robin was still yelling about its nest. Somewhere down the street, kids were playing street hockey, the puck cracking against someone's garage door at regular intervals. The evening light was doing that thing it does in Halifax in June, going golden and long-lasting past when it should. I am not a man who has had an easy life. I don't say that looking for sympathy. I say it because I want to be clear about what I mean when I say the fence post went in straight, and the level showed true, and behind me on the back step my daughter was laughing at something my brother had said, and it was, quietly and without ceremony, exactly enough. She graduated the following spring. Top marks in her clinical cohort. I sat in the front row in a rented auditorium at the Dal Art Center and I watched them put the hood on her shoulders and she found my face in the crowd immediately, the way she always has since she was small, and she grinned. Patrick was 2 seats to my left. He'd brought flowers. Red tulips because Ivy had mentioned once 3 years ago that tulips were her favorite and he had remembered. That mattered. It was a small thing and it mattered. She's been working on the oncology floor at the QEII for almost a year now. Night shifts, mostly. She comes home in the early morning and sleeps until noon and then studies for the additional certification she's working toward. She still picks up occasional shifts at the diner on Barrington, not because she needs to anymore, but because she likes it. She likes the regulars. She likes the noise and the coffee and the rhythm of it. You don't have to, I told her once. I know, she said. I like who I am when I'm there. I think about that November dinner sometimes. About the choice I made to let her walk to that sunroom, and the choice I made an hour later to walk back through the house. About the things we tell ourselves in the moment to justify waiting. That patience is wisdom. That smoothing things over is the same as healing them. That protecting the peace is the same as protecting the people inside it. It isn't. I know that now. Your children are watching you work that out in real time. They're watching what you do when the cost of standing up is something you actually care about losing. And they will remember, not with bitterness, most of them, not if you're lucky enough to raise someone like Ivy, but they will remember. And what they take from it is who they become. Stand up. That's it. Even when it costs you something. Especially then. Because the person watching you do it is learning what they're worth, and you want them to know the true number.